Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Emmett Muckles, who is named after his father, slightly different spelling, named after his father. This is the day the Lord has made. Be glad that you woke up. Be glad that the left and right hemispheres are still battling each other. Be glad that you are a billionaire. And you probably wonder, Emmett, what are you talking about? If you listen to the show, you get it. If you haven't, I'll explain it to you. So there was a cell, and then there was another cell, and they met together. And then there was this cosmic force that came down that caused them to dance. And they began to multiply. 2 to the power of 30 made you a billionaire 30 days later. So you're already a billionaire. You're a trillionaire. Just think of the gut flora. So be a human being and get the being part right, which is the experience. So you know about that. Now for the guest. My guest today, we're probably just going to have fun. We're going to talk about yoga, and we're going to talk about our business, and we're going to talk about how to get her done. And it is Lola Scarborough. Hello.
Hi, Emmett. Thank you for having me on the show. So grateful to be here.
You're in Texas, and Texas is its own country.
It definitely is.
with its own laws and regulations. And,
yes.
And except for Austin, Texas is not known for the yoga space or the mind, body, spirit space, as I would like to call it. I would think more Denver, California, some other places, or Sedona, but Texas doesn't come to mind.
No, and there's a good reason for that.
When I think of really big iced teas, guns, and motorcycle helmets in the freeway, which are armadillos.
Yes.
I've been to Texas, so
yes, it sounds like it.
Yeah,
I've been living here a long time. It's an extremely conservative environment. So
no.
only the brave psychic warriors dare to venture here.
So let's dive back a little bit. Let's dive forward. Tell us exactly what you do. If you and I are coming to a building and you see this, nice looking man heading toward the elevator, and he holds the door for you, and we're all going up on the floor, and you and I are on the elevator, and I look over and go, "Hi, what do you do?" And you would tell me.
I would tell you, I'd say, "Hi, Emmett, I know you from the podcast."
Pretend with me, okay?
No, what I'd say is, if you asked me what I did, I'd say that I'm a yoga and wellness coach and practitioner, and I live in League City, Texas, and that I started my business 11 years ago. And when I did, we bought this little place that had about 1,700 square feet. And my husband, when he walked in and I said, "This is it," and I showed it to him, he sank. He literally sank. I said, "I see so much potential." He says, "All I see is work." Right.
That's the man thing. Yeah.
It's definitely, yeah. He identified that right away, and he was definitely right. But the place had a huge banana grove, lots of snakes. We were literally in the middle of nowhere on an acre of land in this little rundown place. And he thought I was out of my mind, but he stuck with me. He didn't divorce me over this, so it all went well.
We don't divorce you over stuff like that. No. Men are simple. It takes a lot for us. We divorce over dumb stuff.
But yeah, so I would say that I started a yoga studio in a place where there were no studios.
Yeah, I believe it.
And when we first opened, people would call me and would say, I can't come because meditation is of the devil. And I'm kind of like, well, then why are you calling me to start with?
You know what? So this is what's funny that you just said that, and I'm diverging a little bit, is because I always say this: prayer is when you talk to God, when you verbalize to God. Meditation is when you listen.
I agree completely. That's the beauty. And I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal it and keep it and use it in my classes. Thank you.
Just send a check. You know the PayPal account.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And that's absolutely accurate.
But it's true because, you know, and I was listening to something today. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit here. I was listening to something today. You know, a lot of times, and I can get in trouble for this with some conservative people, as I take the Bible and I would say I would lean heavily toward the Christian side, but I don't take the same pathways because a lot of it is allegory and a lot of it is dictating to us how the mind, body, spirit works in that allegory. Because if you take it as straight contextual, it doesn't make any sense. But if you relate it to the serpent, which is coming up the spine,
the Kundalini.
If you talk about the male and the female, because a lot of times in the Bible, there's a male and a female counterpart. You're talking about the left and the right sides of the brain and how they're, and if you talk about the parting of the sea, you got that little middle space from those. I'll get deep into it. Don't get me there. But
I'd love to. That's my favorite topics.
But, you know, I understand where you're coming from because you come from a very conservative Christian area, the heavy Bible Belt. I mean, I've never seen churches that literally look like football stadiums until I went to Texas, in Houston, right down that corridor freeway. That freaked me out because I thought I was like, you guys got a lot of football teams here.
But yeah, no, it is. It's a very conservative area. So one of the biggest barriers to entry when we first started was the belief system that was in place. And this is as recently as 12 years ago.
Wow. So what was first of all, what made you move toward having a yoga center in a very conservative area versus saying, let's open a yoga center, let's move to somewhere outside of Denver or Aurora, or let's go to Sedona area, because it's not that far from you. I mean, it's not that difference of a change. But you said, look, we're going to go in the middle of guns and beer country. Guns, beer, and trucks. And we're going to get people in tune with themselves.
Yeah, well, people told me repeatedly I'd lost my effing mind. And I'm kind of like, well, you know, whatever. But this is where it's needed, you know. It's true. Not, Sedona has plenty of places like Yoga Lola Studios, but this area did not. I mean, almost completely bereft of not Christianity, but of deeper meanings to spiritual aspects of who you are in the sense of personal self-development. Yeah. Right. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So we found the space, and the idea was that it was going to be a retirement dream. Right. So you ask, God listens, right? Then he kicks you out of the airplane, no parachute, free fall all the way down. Yeah. So we bought the studio. We got it somewhat renovated. And before the studio, I had like zero debt. After the studio, I charged up a lot of different things because I thought, well, you know, I've got an $85,000 a year job. No problem. I'll pay my credit cards off. Whoa. Well, the company I was working with, they laid off a whole bunch of people. I was one of them. And it was when I came through. So I came through, their business tanked. I got laid off. I couldn't find a job anywhere because we were deep into a recession. And all of a sudden that dream of a retirement type of yoga studio became an right now, in your face, make it happen kind of thing. So really I was going to wait for the area to kind of grow into yoga before we really tried to get out there and work it hard, make a living out of it. That's not what happened, though.
Yeah. So you had you had your own business prior?
No, I had always been a well-kept woman in the business world.
Hey, there's nothing that feels good. Nothing like being kept a little bit.
That's right. I mean, people would say, sometimes they'd ask me, they'd say, well, do you want to start your own business? I said, yeah, when I'm retired. I said, but I'm one of those chicks, if they come and open the door to the cage, I'll say, could you shut that door? There's a draft in here. Brr. I got so used to having, prestige and authority because I was always a team lead. The last job I had, I was managing software. I traveled. I had an expense account. People listened to what I said. So I went from that.
So you're basically saying the path that you were seeking, the universe literally put you truly on it.
Yeah, it like in a nanosecond. We bought the place, closed on it. We're 3 months into the mortgage. And then I came through. I lost my job, couldn't find work anywhere. And so I told my husband, I said, I'm going to have to figure out how to make this work.
Now, you did a brick and mortar, basically. So what was your process of going from, I work for somebody, now I am becoming a business owner? Did you know anything about the legalities, forming an LLC, getting insurance, licensing fees? What was that process like for you?
I actually knew about that. I'd worked in a law firm for like almost 18 years before I started working in software development. So I worked with all kinds of attorneys. So I had a really good background in that. And what I didn't have a background in was marketing or marketing myself. So that was where I really struggled. And I was lonely. I was used to being with teams of people. I was on my own. Now instead of handing stuff to someone to go copy and do some of, I scrubbing toilets and I was out there with a pickaxe. I mowed an acre's worth of land for almost 3 years before we could afford to have someone come in and do it.
Wow. So, an acre.
An acre.
Don't tell me it was a push mower.
It was a push mower.
Oh.
It was a push mower, Emmett.
Oh my goodness. So in the marketing space, I mean, you got this business and it's not like Field of Dreams where you build it, they will come. Yeah,
you build it, they don't come. You have to work your butt off to get them in the door.
What were your tactics to move this community towards a wellness and yoga practitioner mind space?
Well, I did a huge re-education. I was a 200-hour certified yoga teacher already. So I went out, I studied different wellness modalities. I got a 2-year degree in Ayurveda. I got a degree in life coaching. I got some degrees in nutrition and herbalism. And so from there, I just branched the business out. I went just from yoga, which was starving us out, to working with clients one-on-one. And that was a lot easier. People will come in for life coaching or things like that more easily than yoga, especially the Kundalini yoga, which is what I teach. Yeah.
So, did you use that as your attraction and then lead them to the yoga?
Yes.
Is that what you came up as your marketing plan? You're like, look, I just have vanilla ice cream here. They're not going to buy vanilla ice cream. I got to tell them I got sprinkles, and I got to tell them I got new seats, and I got to tell them I got jazz playing, so they'll come in, and then I can say, oh, yeah, I got vanilla as well. So is that what it basically worked out for you?
Exactly. And even still and yet, the yoga isn't what supports the studio. What supports the studio are my energy healing and my training classes and my private appointments, although our classes generally run about 20 to 25 people now. So we're getting there, but boy, it's been like going up a mountain with an ice pick in each hand.
Yeah, I believe it. For me, yoga, I have genetic mobility issues, which means we're stiff. We're just, and I'm kind of I'm skinny right now, but I'm still muscular. And I lifted weights for a while, but I didn't realize that if you don't stretch those, it just really constricts you. And I used to plop down on the couch. Now I can literally sit slowly on the couch because of yoga.
That's so good.
And what's funny is the people who need it the most are men.
Yes, and they're the hardest ones to get in. It's funny you say that because I was just talking to some ladies today saying, men need yoga so much more than women do. And yet it's women who flock to the studios because men don't realize it impinges on their mental clarity, their physical ability, their ability to manage their weight, their sexuality. Yeah. You want a good sex life, do yoga.
But do you do any talks? Do you travel around? Do you do any workshops related to all of your practices so that you can bring them in?
I do. I've done we've taken some retreats to India. I do workshops at the studio all the time. I go out to other studios and do workshops. So yeah, I do vendor events where I go out and I talk to people, that sort of thing.
What about retirees? Are you working with them? Because, this is what's really weird about America. As we age, say over the age of 50, we become more and more sedentary because we don't manufacture very much anymore. Most of the jobs are sedentary jobs, and we sleep in beds. And people are probably saying, why is sleeping in beds? What I mean is sleeping in beds that are high off the floor. Those people who are the most limber, the most functional in life, sleep on the floor because that simple act of getting up off the floor is an exercise in itself that keeps your mobility very well. I often sit on the floor just so I can have to get up. But I mean, like, what's the reception like in your local area? Your perfect customer, who would that be?
Well, the seniors are often serviced by senior groups in whatever community that they're in. I just finished doing a 8-week session with a 81-year-old man who was in liver failure and teaching him yoga, and he seemed to improve a lot. But they're mostly senior programs offer the seniors yoga. Although I've done some chair yoga classes at the studio.
That's where I started, chair yoga.
Yeah. And oh boy, I'll tell you what, I could make a grown man cry doing a chair yoga class. You can work it really hard from a chair.
Yeah. I literally started with a video doing chair yoga and then moved up to another video series because that's one of the other items is with men is they don't know how to do less than.
Right.
And this is one of the things that I really embraced or that I understood is that, you would watch a video or I would go to a class and they say, do what you can. It's like, you don't understand. That's not the psychology. And then it's like, then you have to get into the mindset of yoga. I'm like, I'm a student. When I come here, you either have to take it very slow and say, this is not just about stretching. This is about opening your mind and take me through those levels because otherwise I am just going to try to go balls to the wall and do everything and end up hurting myself. So I would be like the next day, like, I can't move. I think I've been looking for somebody like you because I literally thought there's not a program for men to coax them into it. Those who are interested or who have a mild interest typically will not go to a class because A, they don't want to put stretchy pants on. B, they feel inadequate because the physicality of women are far more limber because of what you have to do. You have to deliver children. Your pelvic floor is much wider. Your mobility is so much better. And men compete. Naturally, we compete. And if we can't compete, we don't even try.
Right. Yeah. And so whenever we have students come in, and we have about 15% men in the studio. And I keep trying to get my husband to teach an all male class. And I think we're getting ready to roll it out. We just tell them, do whatever it is you feel like you need to do to make yourself feel good, but
Right.
don't hurt yourself so bad you can't come back tomorrow.
I did that.
Because we need you here.
Yeah.
A dead body is of no use to us. So, dial it back.
So are you doing the hot yoga classes as well?
My husband does the hot yoga classes. I teach Kundalini and Yin. He teaches 2 different versions of the hot classes.
Okay, let's diverge. What is Kundalini yoga?
Kundalini yoga is not a posture-based yoga. It's a movement-based yoga. And the idea is it's all about energy. So if you understand the energy systems of the East, yes, Kundalini, energy moving up the spine, Shakti, the bottom of the spine, moving up to meet Shiva at the pineal gland. So there's a merger and you become whole. So you're no longer left and right brained, you're whole brained. That's enlightenment, is when you get whole brained. It's about moving energy. We do a lot of pranayama. We do a lot of meditation. We do a lot of chanting. It is powerful, and it's a very difficult practice in terms of physicality. I mean, you build your core, you build your strength, but the emphasis is on raising the energy in the body so that you become a vessel for service for the universe. And that's the ultimate goal of it, is to not get rid of your ego. We need our egos just like we need our legs and our arms. We need all of these things, but to get the ego in the right place so that the heart can serve. And that's the goal of the whole practice.
Now, what's the other yoga that you practice that you instruct?
The Yin Yoga, which I love. It's a very quiet yoga where you'll go into a posture and you'll hold it anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, and it's silent. It's a very quiet yoga. You use bolsters and straps. It's not restorative because you're actually doing the work on your own, but it's very, I would call it a reflective yoga. Kundalini yoga is a very active yoga. Yin is a very passive yoga. So they complement each other.
What's the one that starts with the A? I never pronounce it right.
Ashtanga.
And
is there's Anusara and Ashtanga.
And do you teach those as well?
No, we don't teach those at the studio.
Okay, so you just move with the 2 modalities.
Well, and then we also teach a fitness yoga, which is just a hatha-based yoga with no pranayama, no frills, no om this or om that. I mean, it's for people who just don't want to do that. And then we also practice Buddha yoga. And Buddha yoga is a yoga posture tribal dance fusion. It's more of a workout really than a yoga practice, but it is fun. And you use a lot of ghetto music that you blast the ceiling off with. And so those are yogas for people who aren't really interested in the finer details.
It's American yoga.
Of yoga. It definitely is.
It's middle America yoga.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So you haven't got to the naked yoga yet then?
No, I've seen that out there. I have a feeling we'd probably, just our income would grow off the map if we did naked yoga. Or sometimes people will call me and they'll say, "Oh, you do Kundalini yoga. Is that like sex yoga?" I'm like, no. It will make your sex life better, but we don't do sex in our studio. We work on our bodies, right? And I'll say, no, that's a different kind of yoga.
I mean, it's growing because I was in San Francisco, I was in New York, in a couple other places, and I always looked for yoga classes, and I kept seeing them pop up. Like,
yeah,
it was the hot yoga and the naked yoga, but everything's has a fad kind of thing to it where it comes in and comes out, and then it goes into its little niche where people,
right?
Because most people have to be really they have to be kind of free of judgment to do some of these modalities as well.
Right. And people are rarely free of judgment. This is a puritanic type of environment, even though, there's all this talk of sexual liberation. People are really quite sexually uptight.
Yeah, they are.
Our porn industry wouldn't be flourishing the way it is if people were more healthily balanced.
That's what I found out when I went to Europe. And, I realized how uptight Americans really are. I mean,
really uptight
about the body, because I was seeing some things in just basic stuff and in saunas. I was like, whoa, I'm the only one with clothes on. What's going on?
Yeah, they don't have the same fear of the body that we do, or of sinning,
It was amazing because I would see people who were literally 18 to 90. Right. And they're all just hanging out and drinking coffee, and some people are over there doing yoga, and some people are in the sauna, and it was just really social, non-judgment. But America is about judgment because that's how they control us.
Right. Yeah. And, you kind of got to go with where you're at, right?
Yeah. But, you're going to change that landscape. So do you have a YouTube channel that people can witness? Because I know that you have videos on your website, and your website is
YogaLola.com.
Yoga Lola.
But actually, I don't have a really well-developed YouTube site, but I've done a lot of EHOW videos. So if you search my name, Lola Scarborough, and you put EHOW,
mm-hmm.
EHOW, you'll find tons of videos where I show different practices of yoga and breathing and things you can do. I've had lots of really sweet comments back from viewers about some of the stuff that I've shown there for arthritis. So,
now, what made you publish the book about breast cancer?
I'm a healer. I do laying of hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing that since I was 12. My grandmother was a healer. And one day she looked at me and she walked over, she grabbed my hands. She said, "You got the hot hands." And she put me right to work. Good. So I've been doing it ever since. So I see a lot of women coming in, and I've been doing this a long time. And I noticed the uptick of breast cancer, mastectomies, surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation. And I thought, what in the world is going on? Why is this happening? So I did like a deep dive into the research, because I'm a research rat, and started looking at the different things that they think are causative factors for triggering breast cancer. Mm-hmm. So I put all that in the book, and then I've got one section that's like 60 pages of the different kinds of alternative modalities that you can use to help keep the body healthy, whether it's to avoid breast cancer or avoid any other kind of chronic or acute disease.
Yep.
So that's why I did it, because I wanted to help people see that you don't necessarily have to accept that it's coming your way. They say now 1 in 8 women will develop inflammatory breast cancer in her lifetime. I say we need to look at that and do everything we can to mount a defense against it.
Yeah, because the women are the key to our future.
Mm-hmm.
Without you, it'd be just us dirty and in trees and blowing stuff up. Literally. Because if my wife wasn't around, I'd be out back with my bow with a grenade on the front of it, like, watch this, boys.
Yeah. Guys like to blow things up. It's a lot of fun.
It's like, ooh, fire.
I was actually in the Army for 3 years, way back when.
I could see that. I could see that.
Yes.
So if we move forward 18 months, what's your vision?
My vision is to My vision is to do more podcasts, get a chance to talk to intelligent people who are game changers like you, have an opportunity to kind of share my vision of creating a kinder, gentler world with just through the practice of breathing, through the practice of connecting with ourselves, through the practice of staying in good health. If you're not in good health, you're grumpy, right? You're grumpy.
What about depression? I don't mean to cut you off, but it just really came up to me. People are suffering greater numbers of depression than they did before. Do you have any feelings as to why that's growing across the public overall?
Oh, I do. And it's loneliness and lack of community, lack of actual human contact. And there's a huge fear of trusting others in our society that isolates us from one another. And it's so sad. I mean, like when I've traveled to India, people are in community all the time. And when I traveled to Poland, you see people in community all the time. You know, they're dancing together, they're laughing together, they're eating together. Yeah. So many Americans eat alone. So many Americans go home and they get on their computers, and there's no substitute for human connection. None.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think that, as well as poor diet and no exercise, and kind of wondering, what is this all about? You know, again, that lack of who am I in this big, big world, and where am I going? And does any of it mean anything? I think that, you know, we're spiritually vacuous. We need that connection to be who we are.
And my last question for you, because this keeps coming up, because my wife is a doula.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, she's building her practice now, because she said it a couple of years ago. I want to be a doula. I was like, go do it. Because my thing is, don't come with me asking for permission. Come to me with an action plan. Mm-hmm. Because that's good. I got your back. Don't come to me like, hey, I'm like, no, come to me, tell me how you're going to do it, so I can keep you on point. When you're doing Reiki, how do you get rid of what you've pulled out?
Well, I never assume it to start with. Kind of when I stand there doing the energy practice, first of all, I call in the big dogs. I call in God, Jesus, Buddha, Mother Mary, Wan Yin. I call them all in. Then I call in other healing saints and angels. And I ask them to surround the person. And I also, once we finish the session, I have a way of cleansing myself to release anything that I might have accidentally picked up. But I never assume it. I'm not doing the healing. I'm just the transmission point. This is between God and the person on the table. I'm just the transmission point.
Gotcha. You're just the wire.
I am just the wire and nothing more.
Well, awesome. I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm going to have you on the podcast again, because we have quite a few other things that we need to get deep on, just on the spiritual side. What would you say to people who are wanting to start their own business and have no clue what to do? Like, I know I want to do this thing, but I don't know where to start.
Well, the first thing I would tell them is be fearless, which is different than being stupid, right? They're two very different things. Right. So, you know, be fearless, envision it happening, get a plan together, know what you're going to do if you're going to fail. And if you're going to fail, be prepared to get back up and go for success, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 times. Like with me, I've had to change my direction and what I offered and the way I language thing. Over the last 12 years, I've had to change it 4 or 5 times. Right. And that's a part of evolution, right?
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Emmett. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we depart from you. Remember, you are a billionaire. I know most people think when they hear the billionaire lifestyle, they think of this manufactured thing that we call currency, called money. It is not about money. You are a billionaire. just in your hand. If you look at your hand, turn it back and forth and look between the longest finger and where your hand meets your wrist. We're just talking about the hand. That is yours. Make sure, you know that you own that. In that hand, there are many, 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 many cells. Hence the word self. Self. You own those. They are part of you. There's at least 1 billion there. When you get out the shower, drop your towel, go to the mirror in your naked state as you came into this world and bask in the glory that is you. Then, after you get through looking at that chicken wing, that little flabby thing underneath your tricep, and you might see the back fat and the moles and the little wrinkles that are starting to develop, just take it in. That's your evolution. And then get closer to the mirror and look at your eye, because your eye in the middle is like a nebula in the sky. As above, so below. As you think it, like she thought, I want the business. She manifested it through the body and it became material. So it started in the head as above, worked through the body and came out below. As above, so below. That's what we are. We are the divine creatures. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. When you meet someone else who has the nebulae in their eye, like the one in the sky, treat them with love, honor, respect, and in love. Till next time, love you all. Peace.